who's all presenting today? Who all, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 people, okay. And Friday, everyone else, okay. All right, yeah, give me at least a little bit more time to get that, our first case description of what I'm looking for. I'm gonna stay after class and actually wrap that up and get that up on Blackboard so we know exactly what to expect. And we'll talk about a little bit, maybe some of the data you can put into your first case, which is working with a particular individual that you define, who will be willing to participate, and talking about a behavior that they would like modified or changed, and you collecting some sort of information or data to the best of your abilities, and maybe at least working with them twice, I would say at minimum, because I know people have time constraints and things like that, so you can get some basic information. And maybe what we can do is over the rest of the semester is work with them even more. Maybe we could, towards the end, come up with a real plan, right, for an individual. Now the other two cases I was thinking is one, we could do a classroom observation. So getting one of a professor you know to maybe just sit in on class, right, inconspicuously. Right? It's probably best you talk to the professor and be like, hey, don't announce me, don't tell anybody about me. I'm just gonna show up and sit in the back of class, right? Or somewhere in the classroom. That way you can get kind of authentic information without people filling there modifying their behavior because they think you're some administrator, right? Work for the school and doing some sort of observations. If you can do that, that would be great. And I would say, hey, you know what? Give the professor maybe some prompts. Like, hey, like I said, I know time's constrained, so maybe one initial observation sitting in the classroom. And I don't expect you to sit in the whole classroom. I know you have other courses at work. Maybe partially sitting in, making observations of behavior in the class, whether it's people on their phone, interruptions, doing other things. Anything that you find personally like pertinent to, maybe you say, hey, maladaptive behavior to the classroom itself, right? To like a healthy classroom. And coming up with some own information, which means that for the most part, you may come up with your own definitions of certain behaviors. You're like, here's a behavior identified, right? And I'll operationally define this behavior as such, whether it be, I see people texting or doing something, right? And then maybe you could come in a second time. And once again, I said I don't expect you to sit in a whole hour or 50 minutes. But you could come in and maybe give the professor at least 3 to 4 prompts. Like, hey, is there 3 to 4 things, a prompt to me, like, here's the 3 to 4 statements that you can make, like, slide in to see if it changes the behavior of the classroom, right? And you want to tell the professor, like, hey, make it kind of unknown, don't make it obvious. If it's obvious, then you're skewing my data, right? So you want to try to make it as authentic as possible. You have like 4 prompts, 4 things. He could sneak in, he or her could sneak in his lecture, right? And make sure they're not obvious, right? Like, hey, everyone pay attention or something, right? You got to get a little creative with something you can sneak in. I'll leave that up to you, right? So the point is for you to be as innovative in your own observations and thinking so that you come up with a pretty unique plan that you find is workable. And then our third one, maybe that'd be outside the classroom, maybe like kind of how a lot of you have been doing already, which is somewhere outside. It could be a restaurant, a store, go downtown, people watch or something, right? But maybe it has to be something where you can introduce some stimulus, like maybe 4 or 5 things that maybe you could sit out somewhere to see if people change their behavior. It could be like free samples or something, right? You can issue like free samples, put something there, see if people will throw it away like, hey, stage a prop of garbage in a neighborhood maybe that you think like people care, right? Or you could be like, hey, let's see the behavior of thievery and leave something out. It could be like a fresh bottle of Coca-Cola. See how quickly someone is stealing or something. I don't know, right? But the point is for you, come up with your own sort of rules and definitions, right? Constraints, things like that, right? And we'll talk about that later, but first we'll do just kind of the person-to-person case. All right, so we talked about kind of introduction to data collection. Like, hey, this is the most important part because we want evidence-based interventions, right? Things that work, right? And not all things work, so we have to have good information to show the progress of what we're doing. We say, what's the information we can have before? Well, like I said previously, you can have information before an intervention starts. Observatory information, right? You're like, hey, I'm just coming in, I'm going to work with, say, the student, but I want to make some observations. Let's say a small child in a classroom. I want to make some observations on their normal behavior before I even introduce myself into helping them, right? So I make good observations. You're like, well, what are you observing? Well, we want to kind of work on their attention, their ability to complete homework or something, right? So you could come in and take measurements. Wait, let me see what this assignment that the teacher gives. What's the duration of time that the child works on that before they get distracted and don't work on it anymore? Right, so like, okay, I see about 3 minutes, all right? Tallying up about 3 minutes on average that the child focuses attention before they're distracted, right? Other things, we could be like, hey, you know what? Now I'm working with a child, what do I want to know? Well, I could be like, one, depending on what the behavior is, I'm targeting the target behavior, like, I could just tally up the strike. How many times the child yells something out, right? Like a golf cart, just click. 2. All right. Anyway, that's good information. Okay, you're seeing maybe the frequency of this particular behavior screaming out. Okay, that's good, but what else would be even better? You're like, well, I need to kind of know the rate. Right, what do you mean rate? Well, I need to know in a certain amount of time how often it happens. Better information than just counting up strings. Right? Okay, let me see the rate. Right, the classroom is 1 hour long. The child is doing it about 15 times within an hour. Right, that's good information. Now I would say, hey, you know what? It's really good if I could get that child down to 5 times an hour. Right? I know making significant progress in teaching them a new skill. And we could move on from there and try to improve. Maybe to the point where they don't do it at all. In a time of an hour instead, right? You could go even further with things. You could say, the interval, right? Maybe you say, you know what? I'm going to divide an hour into an hour 60 minutes. I'm going to divide this into 6 10-minute intervals, and I'm going to work at different intervals using different kind of approaches, right? So maybe I can try to focus more at the beginning of the class or towards the end or towards the middle, and maybe modify my intervention as I go through those stages, right? So that could be kind of putting things at intervals, right? We'll talk about that. Partial interval, whole interval, frequency, rate. There's things like latency too, right? We'll hear the term latency, and basically latency is the time that it takes when you give a command or an instruction to a target versus when they actually start doing it. Right? So like, okay, there's another measurement there. I've told this child to do this particular thing. It takes them 2 minutes before they actually It's good information. Like, what is happening there? Are they not, am I framing my command a certain way that they're not getting it? Why does it take 2 minutes? Can I get that down to a minute? If I could get that down to a minute, then I know that the teacher has an easier job of giving instruction and people actually doing it, which is helpful. Yes, so we'll talk about all of that, but we want to kind of keep it as simple as possible, right? It's not meant to be complex. If you can make it as simple as possible, it's easier to transfer that information to other people, like administrators, teachers, staff, people you train, so that you're working and trying to teaching them how to do it themselves is just a lot easier, right? So we want to keep it simple. Don't want to make it complicated. All right, so data collection should be as simple as possible to facilitate consistent data recording, right? Simplicity. Here's a student data sheet, right? So we got teacher, assistant, the date, observer name, date of tape, right? Maybe you're recording, number of children observed. Maybe it's just one child, maybe it's 3 or 4, maybe it's even more of that, right? You're like, all right, now here we have different behaviors. And like I said, you can operationally define these. They just kind of put them into, right, they just kind of operationally define these and put these into kind of bracketed them in certain ways, right? So you could do this kind of your own way. So we say, hey, here they're saying mark the behavior with the modifier, which they label as BLK and or OOS. The student is out of seat, which is OOS, partially blocked, or has their back to the camera, right? So, you can kind of set this up different ways as an observer, right? You can kind of do your own definitions for what you're looking for with certain behaviors. All right, so you say you're giving things kind of codes, you're putting things into coded form, right? So you say, hey, one chime sounds after the video title as the video segment begins. At the next chime, pause the video and go to the first interval on the data sheet. All right, so you're saying, hey, if you're doing a recording here, you can have chime sounds for when the video begins, and after the next chime, pause it and go to the first interval. Just kind of repeating the same process. Circle or highlight the appropriate behavior. You're just checking out, hey, did the appropriate behavior occur in this interval, right? And I don't know, they got about 20 intervals here. So remember I said you could put things into different intervals. If it's an hour, you could say, all right, there's 60 minutes in an hour. I'm gonna divide that into 10 minutes, which is 6 intervals. And I'm gonna focus on each interval. I will do a check mark or a circle if the behavior that we're targeting occurred, a good behavior, right, the modified behavior, or it did not occur, right, with the circle or check. Inter-observer agreement. Score derived by calculating the data recording accuracy of multiple criterion trained data collectors in relation to the criterion of each other. Right? We don't have to get too technical with that, but we're like, hey, it's important to note that the inter-observer agreement does not prove an intervention is effective if the operational definition or training are flawed. The data may be flawed, right? So we say high interoperational agreement means there's a high degree of agreement of the presence or absence of a particular behavior in a specific period of time by multiple people who are trained to take the data anyway. So we're like, hey, you know what? Here's a documentation, we call it inter-observer agreement, and we want to get multiple people to confirm that they actually agree that the particular behavior is occurring, right? So let's say if you were working with more people, you could have this sort of data collection set. Everybody's kind of taking a look at it in terms of how you trained them, what you're looking for, and people can sign off, right? Or people can make notes, tally, right? I don't think this is actually the behavior you were looking for, right? This did not occur, which means the data may be flawed to some degree. If the IOA is low, it is possible one or both of the observers are not recording the data correctly, If you train the observers, you may need to record observations simultaneously with them to determine if they are scoring correctly according to your training criteria. So it's basically kind of goes once again with working with multiple observers, people that you train to take a tally, a calculation, right, a score about their observations. And it's difficult to be like, hey, you know, we all are different with different perspectives. So if I see a behavior occur and you see a behavior occur, we might see it from a different kind of point of view. And so that's why we say that operational definition is important, because like we can take any behavior and talk about the behavior in detail, right? Not just like, oh, you're screaming out. You're like, well, exactly explain the screaming out part to me. Can you break that up into 5 bullet points, right? It's not just screaming out. Like, all right, there's something that happens right before. It's a particular type of degree of screaming, right? It's a particular type of pitch. And this is what happens afterwards, right? And, or if we say like, hey, you know what, a child is having a fit, and you're like, well, what kind of fit? You're like, well, first thing they do is drop to the floor, right? Drop to the floor and do what? Well, they lay on their side and kick their legs. Okay. How long are they on that floor? You're like, well, on average, they're on about 2 minutes. You're like, how do you know that? Well, I calculated and defined that after 2 minutes, they actually get off the floor, stand up, and sit back in their seat. So I would define that as the end of that fit. You get it? It's like we want to be very specific about what exactly behavior is. So even in your cases, you know, I want to kind of get you to delineate, like break up behaviors in a way that, you know, you can identify little sort of interactions with certain behaviors. Like what's actually happening, body movement, vocal things, things like that. Observations done from video with an audio cue embedded in the video can sometimes be viewed by different observers at different times with high degrees of accuracy. But once again, maybe for your last case where you're doing outside, might be a little weird for you to record it. You could record it, right? Because if you think about it, it's out in the public. You have free range to record it. You can come back and look at the information. Right? So obviously you can sit there and take notes, but sometimes it's good to come back and look at some video or something like that, right? Look at it. Like, oh, look what they did. Right? So for my example, it would be like, hey, let me look at behavior of either people removing trash when we like stage littering on purpose in a certain environment, or maybe people taking something if we stage leaving something out. We can come back and see, well, what's the behavior? They leave first. Ooh, they came back into the field of view because they had saw it originally, but now they're kind of looking, walking around it before they decide to steal it. Right? I would say steal, I just say take. Things like that. So, you know, sometimes we could have video helps us with high degrees of accuracy. But here they're talking about when we work with multiple people. All right, however, these sole observers must pause the video when they see or hear a stimulus that cues the beginning or end of an observational interval. Perhaps to count the number of workers on task at the moment. The inter-response time between the onset of the audio or visual cue and the time it takes the observer to stop the video may vary quite a bit from person to person. All right, once again, that inter-observer agreement may be affected. But just say like, hey, you know what? Sometimes if we plan on stopping a video and we're working with multiple different, multiple people, sometimes even that process can kind of throw things off. People can stop and things are still happening while they're trying to take notes on that, and now they unpause it, go again, and may have missed some information as well too. All right, let's have our first presentation.
pastry table, like on the side of our ballroom, and it depends on the party, but they can sometimes ask that we take out all the pastries and like set them up so it's nicely and looks nice. It would just be like this, we start with pastries, it looks pretty, but most of the time, the guests would be like taking them, even though the people that organize the party would be like, alright, I want these pastries to be like after dinner, we just want them out to look nice. And so our solution first was to put on like these things out in front of it, and it like doesn't work, so.
Add barbed wire? That's
Well,
it.
that was my boss's solution at the end of the night, but like, it's usually like kids or like elderly that just like walk up and just start grabbing stuff.
You think it's like kids who are at the age where they can't really read, if it is signed?
Well, we don't have a sign or anything, but like,
Okay.
it's pretty obvious that it's like barricaded off.
Yeah.
Like, we have like 4 or 5 of them, people would just like walk up, reach over it, and grab the pastries, and it's just like. So, the first solution is I'm thinking like add signs, I guess, but it should be pretty obvious, you shouldn't be grabbing it yet, especially 'cause like, it happens like when we're giving out appetizers and stuff, like, we're giving you guys food, there shouldn't be a reason to, whatever. And then the other thing is like, which we have also done is like, have one of us stand there, but they have grabbed them in front of us, and it's just like, wow, okay. Like, and we don't really say like,
You don't say anything?
I haven't, I mean, maybe some of my coworkers, but like, if it's like an 80-year-old woman and she's like
Yeah.
grabbing a little treat, I feel awful to be like, no, put that back. So I haven't done anything. The next level would be like, like having the DJ make an announcement and be like, don't take pastries until dinner's over. And my boss was like, we're just gonna add barbed wire.
Now, let me ask you, is there something that you could just do with the displays themselves? You know, certain pastries have like a glass covering.
Yeah.
With the sign on the glass covering or something? Or it's like, hey, that's gonna affect how beautiful we're trying to make the display with the pastries or something of the sort.
That could work, I mean. Yeah, theoretically that could work. It would be, then we'd have to say, yeah, I think that would work.
Okay. Is there anything you could do in change of timing in terms of putting the stuff out? Like, hey, you put it out.
I mean, when they ask for us to like have it out, like at the beginning of the party, like it does look nice. But there's also parties where we like put it out after dinner, cause they don't ask for us to put it, but like the parties where they're like, hey, can we have this out instantly? That looks nice. It's not our choice, it depends on.
Okay. Any suggestions? Anything you could suggest that would make people stop grabbing on the pastries before it's time to actually, start the event?
Maybe like have a sign somewhere.
So signs, once again. Anything else?
One thing to say about signs is like it might take away from how good it looks. And I guess you get not a sign, but the quickest solution would be like printing out a sign. Just not
Yeah.
a good idea.
Because you do think if this is a nice event too, sometimes signs take away from like the ambiance, you know, you don't wanna, people be like, oh, why they putting up signs, not to touch it, right? I feel some type of way about that, yes.
I feel like those things, the ropes, whatever it's called, if it's right up next to the table, I could see somebody just like reaching over, but maybe, like, I don't know how it's laid out, but maybe if you're like you could put those like a few feet in front of it, where people can't reach over. I don't know about kids, I feel like they might still go under it, but
Yeah,
I
mean, it
can't
might-
see like, but I don't know like the layout of the space.
Yeah, we can't fully like. If they really want, like, there's a part where they can, like, we just can't
Yeah.
get it blocked, so we just go around. Cause we've tried to add more space, but at the same time, like, too much space just looks awkward.
Yeah.
Yes.
I really think like an announcement or like maybe telling the people whose party it is ahead of time to like announce to everyone going like, hey, let this sit there until a certain time, then you can go crazy, whatever. But I think that's the only real thing to do.
So like, hey, actually communicate with a few people at the event so that they could transfer this information to their parties, right? Okay. All right, excellent. Good observation. Let's see who does this. Giselle. Oh, this is a good one.
Go personal for me.
Yes, you bike?
So for the first 2 years of my college years, I would actually use cycling because I lived not even 3.5 miles away. So at the time I didn't really have a car, so I was like, I'm a runner, so cycling is like kind of good for me. Cause
Even during the cold winter
Yeah.
months? You still do
yeah,
it? Okay.
so only if there was snow or ice on it, I would just cycle close.
Okay.
But every day biking. So on I'm not sure if any of you guys are locals, but I'll come from like Berwyn, and then I'd bike through all of Berwyn down Harlem, or Oak Park Avenue to Oak Park, and then on to River Forest. So I would go through on these.
So like south of Roosevelt, or you're around Roosevelt, somewhere around
Yeah,
there?
basically. Yeah.
Okay.
So like I would always pass it down Harlem, where the what is that Harlem?
The expressway?
Yes, the
Okay.
blue line, yeah. And so, a lot of the times, cars don't care if you're on the road, and so it would always make me nervous to like drive down the major roads like through Harlem, Roosevelt, Division, Lake Street, and so I would always go through the residential roads, and of course, especially if you go down Oak Park, there's on Lake Street. It is actually not illegal per se, but it's like prohibited to be on the sidewalk. So me being scared to go on major roads, I would have to be inclined to go on major roads, and of course it's like 25 miles over the speed limit, and so I would have to be in a bike lane, and there was a moment where like it stops being a bike lane, you have to merge onto the actual street, and a lot of times cars would just not give you enough space, so you would be like this close behind the car, and it always made me nervous because I would always wait. I was at like a sidewalk, and I would let all the cars go past me because I was just not gonna have it. And so, funny enough, my sophomore year around March, got into an accident, which led me having a little beating mark right here.
How many stitches?
I believe 9 outside and 13 inside. Yeah. And so, because what happened was, I was on the street, I believe it was on Marion and Madison. And I was trying to go into the sidewalk, but because I was very nervous to go on the major street, and so there was a car behind me, and I was like, oh, that guy's speeding up, and I had to go on the right side of the road to the sidewalk, but because of that, I actually got like, not really hit, but like I felt like the car like actually like moved me to the side, and I like face forward onto the concrete.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So.
Did you have like get an ambulance and all that?
Unironically, that's where the what is it called? Rush Hospital is. So I literally just walked to the hospital, and there I was like, yeah, I got a little dead in my head.
Did you get any information from the vehicle? License plate number?
No, because they asked me to just so I had to file like reports with my insurance and the police department,
Mhm.
and I believe they filed one. I haven't heard from it, but yeah, it's my thing. I know. Oh, I'm just
No, go ahead.
Oh, I know there's especially in the city of Chicago, because especially when I used to bike, they start fining people now and also towing, from what I've heard as well, for being parked on bike lanes. I know maybe a lot of you've seen that, maybe done it. I won't shame you for doing it. I do it sometimes, but yeah, I know the city of Chicago started doing it. I don't know about Oak Park, because I don't know, they're very, doing a lot of these little new rules about not biking on sidewalks, but I don't know, that's just my thing.
Alright, so what's the solution? What are some things that could be done out this way?
I know, what they started showing like signs for like, was it share the road type of system, but of course, there's a stigma with cyclists, but you know, like, they don't really adhere to the main road rules, and like, they own the road, but I know, being a bike myself, I hated those type of cyclists, so I would always let cars be the ones to yield to, cause I am not gonna go against a car that weighs 10 tons and I'm just in my little bike. So.
Yeah, difficult, man. I mean, because, hey, look at that bike lane, right? And then you're like, well, how many more cars can we park if we didn't have that bike lane, right? So like, you know, it's only a limited amount of space. So I think it's a challenge between, you know, the direction that like the city authorities and village authorities wanna go. They're like, well, we're giving more power to cyclists, and just think of this scenario. They're like, well, if we were to actually observe how many bikes actually do drive in this space that we've designated permanently, is it worth it? Is it worth to designate this space to cyclists? They're like, well, okay, there's a ton of them going, rush hour, right? 8 to 10 a.m. and 3 to 5, and you're like, well, is there something else we can do besides taking up all that space for cyclists that maybe we can use it elsewhere? So I know, it's a difficult thing, because you're like, hey, cars and parking and more space actually for cars to drive through, which eases traffic. And then you're like, well, if traffic is eased up, then maybe it makes it easier for cyclists to just ride normal without a designated lane. Or safety first for cyclists, because we've had too many people die from getting hit as a cyclist, so designate the space. What are your thoughts on this? Should we have designated cyclist lanes? Yeah? Okay, even if it doesn't ease parking or ease the flow of traffic with motor vehicles.
I mean, the streets are already busy anyway, so I don't know if they get, but yeah, I don't think it's gonna really do anything.
Gonna make that much of a difference. Okay, I'll come to you.
I think like traffic and like issues with parking or something you're always gonna deal with. It doesn't matter if there's a bike lane or if there's not a bike lane. So I don't think it matters, especially if you go like downtown or even over here. You're always gonna struggle to find parking. Harlem is always gonna be busy with traffic until a certain time of the day, so I don't think it really matters.
Alright.
I agree, and I think that it's actually more like controllable. I feel like it's a more controllable disruption to traffic when a cyclist there is no bike lane for a cyclist, but they're driving in the main road. Cause then like you can't, for me personally, like I've seen like where cars slow down a lot to try and, cause they can't get around it cause it's a 2-lane and there's a car next to them and then the whole lane is slowed down. So I feel like it's more of a disruption to traffic if there isn't a bike lane almost.
Gotcha.
And like there's gonna be issues with parking, I feel like all the time.
Okay. Fair enough, right? And they've also done this thing with bus lanes, right? So think about the idea there. You're like, well, cyclists and buses tend to be a major disruption of traffic, right? Because you don't know when the bus is gonna pull over to stop somebody, and they get all these cars stuck behind it trying to get over into the same lane. And with the cyclists, kind of same thing, because now people are weaving in and after. So maybe it's the best thing. Could you come up with anything else? As you thought about it?
I don't know, cause like ever since that accident I had, I just stopped biking. I just switched to get in the car.
Yeah, I'm guilty. I ride them up, you know, I have a electric bike that goes like 40 some miles an hour. right? So e-bike, and then the motorcycle I ride all the time. And I take my motorcycle on the bike lane half the time I like to sit there because I'm not gonna wait for traffic, right? So I'll take it through, just hoping that the cops don't catch me. And then the cyclists, they sometimes get mad at me, like, oh, she's gonna like, dude, what are you doing? All right, excellent. Anyone here has an e-bike, an electric bike? Oh man, game changer. Game changer. Like the one I have, it lasts for 100 miles on a full charge and goes 40 miles an hour. So I'm like, it's even better than the motorcycle, because this thing, like, I can take on the sidewalk, cut through the alleys, like park it anywhere. Game changer. Major, major game changer. All right. Who is next? Diego. Parents with multiple kids. Come on, Diego, I got two.
You gotta let me explain. So I work at the school right here, right next to the parking garage. And so, like, if you can't pick up your kid, at 3 o'clock or whatever, they can stay there. And you come whenever you can and pick them up. And you
Did
go
I
to.
get penalized?
No, it's like an after-school program.
Okay.
So you go up to the receptionist and then you say, wherever you pick it up. And what I've come to notice is that sometimes, like, parents with like multiple younger kids, like, under like 10 years old, they usually come in with like an attitude, kind of. Maybe they've had like a bad day or something, but they just come in like, sometimes like give the receptionist a hard time, like, oh, come here every day, you should know who I'm picking up by now. It's not all the time, but it's just, attitude sometimes that the receptionist is nothing wrong, they're just doing their job. And they just,
Because they're asking,
Yeah,
they
like,
forgot that
yeah,
they know about one kid, but then maybe they ask
Yeah,
about that
I mean,
person.
you
Don't
gotta-
you know I got both kids?
yeah, exactly. And you gotta think about these receptionists see like hundreds of kids every day.
Yeah.
So it's like, they're not gonna remember every single kid.
Mhm.
And so yeah, sometimes it's just like coming with attitude. Also, I don't know, you can just tell by the whole body language and like their face, maybe they had a rough day, or maybe they like had like a lot left to do in the day, and it's already like 5, 6 o'clock. So they just come in like, I don't know, it's kind of super negative. And I always notice that it's usually parents with like multiple younger kids that like, their kids are running around or whatever, and they're kind of just like tired of their kids running around, they just want to like, they want to leave. So it's kind of stuff like that. So that's what I observed. Usually also other parents with like, either if it's like one young kid or they have like a young kid and an older kid, like, like 7th, 8th grade, parents are usually fine. They're okay with that, but usually like the kids that are like running around, which is usually like the younger kids, sub 10 years old, that like give like their parents kind of a hard time. So I just noticed that the parents always kind of come in like, they're just done with like the day in general, I guess. They're done with like the school, they're done with having to drive the kids everywhere, work, whatever. They probably still have to go home and like, feed them, get them ready for the next day, make sure they do their homework. So it's like, I'm not blaming it on them, it's just something I observed.
So you're like, hey, the younger the child, I observed that there's a correlation between how agitated parents are with younger children
Yeah.
versus a little less agitated because there's more independent older children who can kind of take care of themselves.
Yeah, and the problem obviously becomes like when they start taking that out on other people that, like that they didn't do anything, like the receptionists or other workers or whatever, they're just doing their job, you don't gotta get mad at them.
Anything
problem.
you think you can do where you're
Yeah.
like, hey, you know what? They're showing up before they get to reception, there's whatever, a door, there's something
Yeah.
they have to come into, is there something?
Yeah,
Be
there's like
presented that
you
change
can't just walk in, you have to like go up to the door and then the receptionist sees you and they'll buzz you in, so you can't just like walk in. So,
Something
yeah.
you could put there to change attitude, mood, disposition?
Maybe like someone saying like, if you have multiple kids, like, maybe just wait a little bit longer to get both of the kids ready,
Yeah.
to leave, something like that, I don't know.
Okay. Any ideas? Yes.
Maybe a sign that says like, just please be patient,
Yeah,
or something, like, I don't know, be
yeah.
nice, a positive poster or something.
Well, it's already a school, so there's already like those corny,
Yeah,
like,
with like a
like,
cat on it.
Yeah, yeah, like a giraffe, like, oh, you're a superstar or something like that. But obviously that doesn't do anything for the parents.
Anyone else, any suggestions? Nothing? Maybe small bottles of water? Maybe some chocolate at the end.
Maybe,
Small
yeah.
chocolate, right?
Yeah.
Like if somebody gets, cause we say food is a comfort.
Yeah,
Right?
definitely.
And anxiety,
Yeah.
brings on anxiety, get some water, someone takes a sip or something.
Yeah, like some snacks. that could
Yeah, maybe
definitely
some
work.
snacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would
Maybe
actually, you
Maybe
should
they
try
are
it.
just hungry, honestly.
Yeah,
Maybe.
yeah, you think about it, you know, people's blood sugar levels are off and that makes you hangry, right? So get some chocolate in you really quick and you might instantly feel better. Alright, excellent, good observations. Yeah, I got two small kids, my son will be 6 next week, daughter is 4 going on 5. It's a lot of work. So if you don't have the patience, yeah, I do see other parents and they're like, they're done, like they seem like they tapped out. If you don't have patience, then it's gonna bother you all the time. Who is left? How do you feel? These are getting good, I'm liking these. Okay, I'll start doing that.
So this has to do a lot with my job. Like I work at a grocery store and we're always getting like our alcohol stolen and like sometimes they'll come in with a big ass cart and like take a bunch of stuff and like run out. And these are all the things that we don't have, which is why we get robbed a lot. And also, it's kinda crazy because we live in like the location is very like safe. Like a lot of kids are around, it has like there's like a police department down the street, which is crazy that they're still stealing. But I think locking with alcohol and items of serious value would help that because in other stores they have it locked up and I don't know why we don't apply that.
Yeah, Walgreens has deodorant locked up and
Exactly.
toothpaste and stuff like that.
Or like, undercover cops. I know Target has a thing where like, there's people that are watching you and they'll wait until you rack up a certain amount so that then they can charge you,
Charge you.
yeah, for misdemeanor or something like that. And we don't have sensors. I don't know why we don't have that.
Well, if you don't have sensors, that's a big problem. Alright, now what about just adding a security guard at the entrance? Do you think that would help at all? Or not?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like you feel uncomfortable or something. I just, I don't know. It would
Any-
help, but.
Any suggestions?
What store is this? I'm trying to.
Well, can you tell us what neighborhood?
It's Elmhurst. It's like
Alright,
Elmhurst.
so Elmhurst is.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there was like this time where like my coworker was trying to stop a guy and like they cracked him with like an alcohol bottle.
Inside the store? Out?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like,
Yeah, you usually don't, I mean, it's insured, right, so there's no point in people to get hurt
yeah,
because.
but he's still went out.
Yeah, but you do get frustrated, people get angry, right, because they're like, hey, I'm working hard, people steal, they get away with it. Right?
Like the company, I mean, they don't take anything out of my paycheck, but like.
Yeah. Any other suggestions? Yes.
So I know at the Target on Oak Park, that like little one, they have that other high value alcohol in like a little glass cabinet and like all the cheaper crap like surrounding it. So maybe you guys could do that, but like legit bottles like Jack Daniels or whatever in like a glass thing. And then have like the cheaper stuff like beer and
Yeah.
seltzers outside.
Okay, that's a good suggestion. Anyone else? Yes.
I feel like this not suggestion. I don't feel like sensors would work because the way that you're explaining it, it's like they're just running out anyways, so, like the sensor, you already know that they're kind of stealing.
Yeah.
Or same with like the security guard by the door, just because it's like they're leaving, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
So nothing to be done. I mean, this is a big complaint for everywhere, right? Downtown Michigan Avenue, every store, people leaving, stores leaving Chicago, they're like, people just steal and get away with it, nobody's gonna do nothing about it. Alright, excellent, good observation, thank you. Alright, everyone, have a great day, I'll work on getting that, first case up on